Welcome to my channel, Richard Lloyd USA. I'm Richard Lloyd. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, do me a favor and click on the subscribe button on the bottom right over here. You'll see a little red subscribe button. And as part of the process of clicking on that and subscribing to my channel, you'll see a bell icon. When you click the bell icon, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and then you can watch it at your own leisure. Also, in the comments section below, leave your comments, questions, and suggestions. I look at them regularly, and sometimes I use the suggestions to make new videos, so I appreciate that. Also in the bottom here, or in the bottom corner, depending on what device you're watching this video on, you'll see a like button. That's a thumbs up. Give me a big thumbs up and help my channel and my videos to grow on YouTube. I greatly appreciate it. As well, in the video description below, you'll see a bunch of links. Those are affiliate links. And what that means is that I get a small commission every time you use them when you click through and buy the products that are there. And it doesn't cost you any extra to do so. So it doesn't cost you a cent to use those links as opposed to going directly to, say, Amazon and buying the product directly. There's no added cost to you. On top of that, the bonus will be that you'll get the product from the exact same seller that I bought it from, therefore guaranteeing that you get the same product that you see in the video. Once again, thank you very much for watching and enjoy the rest of the video. Today I'm going to be doing port forwarding on the Netgear wireless router. This is the WNR2000. It's a version 3, and basically I'm just using it as a reference Netgear router because it has the Netgear firmware inside it and Netgear Genie firmware inside it, which most Netgear routers now run. So I wanted to show you how to configure a Netgear router. I can't really recommend this router anymore, though it's a fine router. There's nothing wrong with it. It works just fine. I just don't think it's the greatest value at this point. It's got a rather slow processor in it, and it is only an N300 router, and it's running at $29.89 here on Amazon. I will put links for this stuff in the video description below, but I can't recommend it because it's just not a good value compared to something like the TP-Link N450 router, the TLWR940N. I think it's a far superior router. It's got a much faster processor, at least twice as fast, and it has MIMO technology, N450, and all the way around, just a more robust router than the Netgear. But that's not why I'm doing this video. I'm doing this video to show you how to configure the Netgear firmware to do port forwarding. So let's get on to the rules and go from there. Rule number 1 is all the things you're going to be port forwarding to on your network need to have a hard-coded IP address. In other words, you have to set the IP address manually on your devices so they don't change, because DHCP, if you have them to set automatically, the IP addresses will change from time to time, and then your port forwards will no longer work. There is a way of getting DHCP to assign them the same IP address every time, but I'm not going into that in this video. I'll go into it in a future video after I'm done doing all these port forwarding videos. And if you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. But the simplest right now is to statically assign an IP address to each one manually. TCP is the Internet Protocol, and it has two different protocols that run inside it. Number one is TCP, that's hence TCP IP. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol / Internet Protocol. And there's another protocol called UDP. TCP, and I know this is technical, but you sort of need to know it because you're going to be forwarding for one or the other on these routers, okay? So basically, TCP is really reliable but slower. UDP is less reliable but much faster. So again, depending on what device you're forwarding to, you're going to have to either forward one or the other or both. So it's up to you to find out which one needs to be forwarded to what port. But I'm showing you this on this video. These ports are virtual ports. They're just something that is inside the packet that it plugs into the other device. So everything on a TCP/IP network connects to an IP address, and when you hit that IP address, it has to know which port it's going to connect to do a successful connection between the two devices. So that's what I'm showing here, how to port forward from your router to devices inside your network out to the real world. If you look at a PS4 and an Xbox, and I'll show you that next, but if you look at, for instance, a PS4 game unit, you need to forward all these ports from the outside world to it on the inside of your network. And you see here that I have 5 TCP ports that need to be shared out to the world, and 2 UDP ports. So there's why the TCP and UDP explanation is important, because certain devices use both. And so there's the port mapping for a PS4. Let's go over to the next one. The Xbox uses different ones, mostly different ones. 80 seems to be common. And TCP and UDP again. So these are the ports that you need to forward from the outside world to your Xbox for it to communicate successfully in the world. So again, why you need to know about port forwarding, because devices like this need it to happen. So here's the configuration, or physical configuration, I've set up for this video. I've got the Netgear router on its own network inside my network, because that's the easiest way to show you the ports working and to test them out and basically show you this configuration as it would be if it existed out on the internet. It's much harder to connect it directly to the internet and then show you the ports coming in. I could do it with VPN, but it still would be very, dicey and kind of hard to show working. But by making the network inside my network, I can get outside of the Netgear router to its LAN port by just logging into the main router. So I'm pretending that the main router is the internet. And then from there, I'll test the outside ports, or the ports that I forwarded through the Netgear to these devices, the IP webcam and the Raspberry Pi 3B+. So let's go forward here. And here's what I'm going to be doing for port forwarding. I've got the inside network, which is 192.168.1.1. And I've got a Raspberry Pi running several things. Number one, a web server on port 80. Kodi Media Server remote on port 8080, SSH for configuring the command line on port 22. So 3 ports on the Raspberry Pi. And I also have an IP webcam on 192.168.1.110. It's on port 8080 as well. You see I have 2 devices here on 8080, and that's fine. You can have multiple devices inside your network with the same ports, no problem. But you can't have multiple, ports on the outside of your router, more than one port going to one device. So in other words, you can't have 8080 twice on the outside. You can only have it once on the outside, and it can only go to one device. So the way I got around that problem, that I have 2 8080 devices in the inside, is by reassigning a different port to the 8080 inside port. In this case, what I did is I took the Kodi Media Server remote and changed the outside port to 9090 and forwarded it to the Raspberry Pi. And the outside port on the IP webcam stayed the same on 8080, and I forwarded it to the IP webcam. And as well, you can see the other ports are just straight through the router. So let's go and configure these to work and then test them out and show them working. So first thing we're going to do is open up the browser and go to the router. Now, if you don't know how to go to the router, I've got a simple way of figuring that out. If you don't know what your router's IP address is, just right-click on your network icon down here, open Network and Sharing Center, go to Network and Sharing Center, go to Change Adapter Settings, and whichever one of these icons is lit up or connected, in my case it's Wi-Fi, just right-click the icon, click on Status, and then go to Details, and here you'll see a bunch of numbers, but the one that really counts is here, the IPv4 default gateway, and that's 192.168.1.1 in my case, and that's usually where your router is. So that's how you find out what your router's IP address is if you don't know. So we'll quickly shut these off. We'll go back to the browser page here and put that number in, 192.168.1.1. Enter it. It's going to ask us to log in. In my case, I've changed the default username and password on the router, and on a Netgear router, the default username and password is admin and password is password. Make sure you change that if you have that as a default. You shouldn't have that. It's just way too easy for somebody to hack your router. So change the default password. If you don't know how to do that, go to your go to the manufacturer's webpage and for your router, and it will have a manual there that will show you how to either reset or change your password. All right, so logging in. So we're into the interface, the configuration interface for the Netgear, and you can see again it's not the fastest router in the world. It's not currently connected to the internet, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that it's ready to go. It's connected to my network, and I'll be able to show you the port forwards through it. Now, where we're going to go here is to the Advanced tab. And then we're going to go to the Advanced Setup over here. And then you see port forwarding, port triggering here on the drop down. Click on that. And here's where you set up your rules, right? I'm going to show you the first configuration, which will be the Raspberry Pi web server. I'm just going to choose HTTP from the menu here because it has it. Most of them do have this kind of configuration, but I'm just going to do the first one through the defaults it gives you. So HTTP, and then it's going to go to 192.168.1.123 as we see here on our diagram. So there we go. So 123. I'm going to click on Add, and it adds it, and it automatically does it for you. Basically, it puts in the service name, external port is 80, internal, and the external end port. So here 80 and 80 are the same. You could do a range, but I'm just doing one. And the internal port is 80, and the internal start port is 80, and the internal end port is 80. So again, on 192.168.123. Now, that is the automatic way to do it, and that works for that one, but it doesn't. Those rules don't, those rules don't exist for the rest of the forward. So here we're going to do, we're going to click on Add a Custom Service, and again, you see the speed of this router. It's not, super quick. Like this takes time, right? So here we're going to go service name. We're going to call this one, I don't know. Let's call it Cody Media Remote, because that's what it is, right? Here you get a choice of 2 protocols, and that's why I like the manual setup better, because it shows you much more what's going on. In our case, I'm using TCP on that. If you don't know, then just go with the TCP UDP or both, and that will actually work regardless, because one of the 2 will have to work. So I choose TCP. The external starting point or port will be 90, because remember we're taking the external to the 8080 to the 9090. So the external is going to be 9090, and it asks for an external ending port. So here we're going to say 9090 again, right? Because we're only forwarding one port here. And it's going to go to 192.168.1.123. Now this router has a neat configuration that it knows that the client's on the network, and it gives you a little radio button, which means that then you don't have to fill it in. So I'm just going to click the radio button. You can see that it fills in 123, right? So notice here that it says internal port. It's using the same port. We can't do that. So that's part of the reason I'm making this video, to show you how to handle all this. So instead of use the same port range for the internal port, we use the same port. We uncheck that, which allows us to change the internal port to what we want. So here it's going to be 8080, and it automatically changes the internal ending port down here. Okay, so at this point we've got 9090 being forwarded to 8080 on 123, and it's TCP. So here we're going to hit apply, and you can see this starting to fill in. Next one we're going to do is SSH, and I don't think that's an option here. It's not. And that's fine. We're going to use add a custom service again. Wait for the router to keep up or catch up. Like I said, it's not the fastest router. And here we're going to type in just SSH because that's what it is. We don't need both of them. We only need TCP. External port is 22. Internal port is 22 straight through. And use the same internal port is checked off, and that's fine. So I'm forwarding 22, right, to 22 here. And because of this great little feature, I'm just going to click on the 123 radio button here, and it fills in this box, right? Perfect. Here we hit apply, and we add one more, and that's the IP webcam. As you can, on our diagram, you can see it here on 110.80.80, and it goes straight through. So let's do it. So add a custom service. Again, you see how it's not the world's fastest router, but you know, it works, and it's like I said, I can't put it down. It works just fine. It's just not very fast. So here we're going to go IP webcam. There we go. And it's TCP. We're only forwarding one port here. It's going to be 8080, and the external ending port is the same because, like I said, we're only doing one. The check mark is here to use the same port range on the internal port, and that's fine too because that's what we're using. I hit the radio button for 110 here because that's where we're going. Nice. I like this feature. This is really nice. It's really quick and easy. Hats off to you, Netgear, for that. That's pretty neat. None of the other routers I made videos on about doing this have that feature. So it's pretty cool. I like it. Here we hit apply. And now we have our 4 port forwards through that router. So at this point, we're ready to test the outside. But before we test the outside, we should really test the inside. And what I mean by that is we should test to see if the internal ports allow connections. Because what if your web server is not running, or your SSH isn't configured right and it's not accepting a connection on port 22, or your IP webcam isn't on? Well, okay, when you get to the outside of your router, usually you're not going to even be in your home anymore. You're going to be testing it from the outside world, and you don't want to find out when you're out there. It's like, oh darn, I can't connect to it. I wonder what the reason is, right? Well, at least you'll know if you test the internal ports to see if they're acting properly or accepting connections, that it's not a problem on the inside of your network. So let's go do that. So let's start with the SSH on port 22, and I'm going to use PuTTY for that, and that is my SSH client or tunneling client. So here we're going to go 192.168.1.123 because we're on the inside, right? And there we go, and PuTTY shows up right away with a login page, which means it's working. So I'm just going to log in here, and the reason I'm doing that is I need to turn on the Kodi media server to have the remote accept a connection from the outside world. So here we're going to hit enter, and Kodi should be running now. Just minimize this, and let's go test this stuff out. So 192.168.1.123. Port 80 is the web server, and you don't really need to put the :80 because HTTP is always on port 80, and web servers run on HTTP. But I'm putting it in there to show you that it works. And there we go. We're going to the web server on the outside. Here, waiting for the router to catch up. But the fact that this changed over, there we go. The fact that this changed over to 0.10 and that you can now see my web page means that worked. Let's go to 192, and the reason the IP changed is because of the way the web server is configured. It's configured to connect on the outside port, but regardless, it's working. So that's proof right there that we're looking at the web page. So here we're going to go to 192.168.1.123 again, but this time we're going on port 9090. And that is, 8080. That is the Kodi Media remote. So hit enter on that. Again, look at our diagram over here for that. You can see that the Kodi Media port is 8080 on the inside, but 9090 on the outside, okay? So there it is running, the media remote on the outside, on the inside. So we know that's working. Next, we know SSH is working because we just logged into that Raspberry Pi. Last thing to check is the IP webcam on 110, and that is on port 8080 as well. So colon 8080, and for some reason it's not connecting. So here's why we're doing this. Let's try that again. For some reason it's logged off. Oh, wrong IP address. That'll do it. Okay, so my apologies there. Got a period ahead of time. Here we go. And there's the remote control for the webcam. Perfect, right? Like to see that. Let's do a / on this to see the video. So video, there's my backyard, wet day. As you can see, pretty calm, but it's raining, and well, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the IP webcam is actually forwarding video. So that's working as well. So we've got that all set up. We know it's all working. Next thing we need to do is log into the outside network. So that would be this side, the 192.168.0.10, and I'll do that by connecting to this main router. So let's do that, and that's through, I'm just going to change my connection and minimize this. Change my connection here to the outside network. There it is. Connect. Yeah, and that warning is from PuTTY because I've just changed the network and it disconnected it. So once again, now we've got everything running on connected to the outside. We can test the outside IP address. Again, in this case, it's going to be 192. Actually, let's do the SSH first. Always, we need to do that to turn on Kodi. So let's just do that. It's 192.168.0.10, the outside network IP address. That's how you know we're testing that. Hit open, and instantly asks me to log in, so it's forwarding. Let's do that. There we go. And start the Kodi media server. Done with that. Next, okay, let's test the web page on that. Obviously, port 22 is working on the outside. 192.168.0.10. Everything's on the same IP address. It's just different ports now. So I'm going to say 80, though you really don't have to, as 80 is the default that everything connects on your browser. And the web page should come up here in a second. Again, like I said, this router is not the world's fastest router. It's not the Raspberry Pi's fault. When I'm using a faster router, this comes up quicker too. So here's my web page running, no problem. Let's go. So we know that 80 is working. Let's go to 9090, which is the Kodi Media remote on the outside. And here it is loading the application. Again, the slowness is the router's issue. It's not a really fast router, so this is what we need to deal with. So here's the remote for 9090. And last but not least, we're going to do 8080 on the outside for the IP webcam. Again, the IP address is always the same. And the IP webcam is just an app running on my Note 4, my old Samsung Note 4 phone. It's called IP webcam. You can find it for free on the on the Play Store. If you have an Android device with Wi-Fi and a camera, it'll work. So it's pretty neat. It's working really nicely. So here we're going to go to video, and I'll just go with a / video here. That shows me the backyard, and it's raining. You can see the raindrops. Well, I don't know if you can or not, but there are raindrops here. And yeah, rainy afternoon in Texas. One of those rare moments around here. It doesn't rain much in Texas. You know, it's pretty nice. But regardless, that's the IP webcam on the outside working. So at this point, we see that we have forwarded successfully all the ports that we wanted to. We got the HTTP on 80, port 9090 and 20 and 8080 all functioning on the through the WAN side of this router. So that's how you forward on the Netgear router. That's the procedure for doing so. Make sure you test things the way I showed you. That way you'll have the least amount of issues in setting this up. So let's minimize this. So yeah, that's it for my video. It's complete. If you like this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a huge favor. Click on the subscribe button on the bottom side, bottom corner. It's always a red icon there at the bottom corner to subscribe. Also, as part of that process, you'll see a bell icon. If you click on the bell icon, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and you can watch it at your own leisure. As well, if you like the video, give me a big thumbs up. Somewhere in the bottom of the video or in the corner, there'll be a thumbs up or like button. Click on that. That helps my video, helps my channel, and helps me to grow on YouTube as well. Once again, and like always, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for supporting me and for your time.